Good morning, children. We are your teachers for today's morning. By the way, I am your teacher, Jenny.
I am your teacher, Fern.
And I am teacher, Roselyn. Our topic for today's morning, children, is all about the reproductive structure of animals and plants. So before we proceed to our proper discussion, let's read first our learning outcomes. At the end of the lesson, the students will be expected to describe the reproductive structures among animals and plants, compare and contrast the reproductive structures of the animals and plants, recognizing similarities and differences by making a Venn diagram, and develop and appreciate the diversity of reproductive structures in nature and respect their importance. So what are you going to do is to listen carefully and be attentive, okay? Good morning, class. By the way, I am teacher Roselyn. So our topic for this morning, it is all about animals' reproductive structures. So when we see animal reproductive structures, it is any kind of mammals that have an internal and external frictious organs. There is an example of mammals or animals. It is our goat, mice, and cow. I classify mammals because it is also like for us, a human, have a productive organs. So, animal reproductive structures of chicken. So, animals of chicken, as you can see in these pictures, it is have two animals. It is a hen rooster. And hence, they have an ovary, ovule, oviduct, and female cloaca. And for rooster, it is have an testicles and male cloaca rather. So, the reproductive system of a female chicken, it is two parts, the ovary and the oviduct. Unlike most female animals, which have two functioning ovaries. But for a hen or a hen chicken, it is usually only use one. Ovary is a cluster of sacs attached to the hen back about midway between the neck and the tail. For the rooster chicken, the testicles produce sperm and then the sperm cell travels to a vast difference to the cloaca. The male chicken possesses two testes located along the chicken's back near the top of the kidneys. The testes are elliptical shape and light yellow in color. Each vas difference ducts which transport sperms from the testes opens into a small bump or papilla which is on the back wall of cloaca. And also, the reproductive organs of the rooster produce an sperm cell through the vas to create an egg until baby chick animals. And that's all.
Good afternoon, class. Are you still with me? Are you still with us? So, by the way, I am teacher Fern, and I would like to continue the discussion of animal reproductive structure. So, frog. Frogs have two reproductive organs called gonads. So, which produce eggs or sperm. These gonads are connected to the oviducts, the tubes of the transport eggs or sperm, and they are located inside the frog's body. These oviducts ultimately connect to the cloaca, the common chamber of the release of waste reproductive product, and sometimes urine and amphibians. So as I mentioned earlier, what is gonads? These are the reproductive organs responsible for producing gametes, sperm in males, eggs in females. In frogs, they are paired structure that are. So what is gonads? These are the reproductive organs responsible for producing gametes, sperm in males, eggs in females. In frogs, they are paired structure that produce the reproductive cells. So, as mentioned earlier, I also mentioned what is oviducts. Oviducts are tubes in female organisms that transport eggs from the ovaries or gonads to the outside of the body. In frogs, these structures are involved in egg transport. And what do you mean by cloaca? It's a common chamber found in many animals, including amphibians like frogs. It wheres the digestive, urinary, and reproductive tract meet and exit the body. In frog, it serves as the opening for waste elimination and reproductive activities. So as you can see, class, this is the picture of fish reproductive structure. So this is the esophagus, liver, vasa, efferentia. This is the testis, and this is the anterior part of a kidney. This is the vas deferens. This is the ureter, and this is the posterior part of kidney, and this is also the vesicula seminalis, coacal gland. This is the rectum, sperm sac. This is also the pelvic vein, urino, genital sinus, and this is a clisper. And also, other part, this is called a oviducal panel. This is a ovary and rectal gland. This is a pelvic vein and cloaca. So, so this means that in female fish, there are paired ovaries that produce eggs. These eggs are released through the oviduct either to the uterus, where they develop or into the body cavity. In male fish, there are paired testes that produce sperm. So this means that certain animals like the hydra, a freshwater colingerate, and don't possess sexual organs for reproductions. Instead, they reproduce asexual through a process where new organism grows as a bud from the parent's body. Eventually, this bud matures and separates from the parents, forming a new individual. And that's all my part. Thank you so much.
Okay, once again, good morning, children. By the way, I am your teacher, Jenny Lagulao. Since they already discussed about what is the reproductive structure of animals, and now we will be discussing of what is the reproductive structure of plants. Are you ready to listen? Okay, you know what? Plant reproductive system, any of the system, sexual or asexual students, children, by which plants reproduce. You know what? In plants, as in animals, the end result of reproduction is the continuation of a given species. And the ability to reproduce is, therefore, rather conservative or given to only moderate change. Are you with me? Okay, yet during evolution, changes have occurred, however, and the pattern is demonstrable through a survey of a plant groups. Hey children, have you seen a pine tree in your entire life? Wow, very good, that's great. And you know what children, this is the illustration of a pine tree. This. And you know what? The familiar pine cone is the reproductive structure of the pine tree. But pine trees actually produce two kinds of cones, a female cone and a male cone. Cones are modified stems that have been retasked for reproduction. The female cone, which is larger than the male cone, consists of a central axis and a cluster of scales or modified leaves called estribi. This, okay? Okay, children, in the pine tree, this is the female cones. Okay, the female cones grow in the upper branches where they may be fertilized by pollen blown in the wind from the male cones. And then this is the form of male cones. The male cones grow in the lower branches. And then this is the seeds. The seeds are dispersed and grow into mature trees. It will be form a pine tree, but small. And then this is the generative sperm of the male cone, tube nucleus, a megaspore, and the scale, the pollen grain, pollen tube, and ovule. A pollen tube forms, allowing the pollen to migrate toward the female gametophyte. Upon fertilization, a diploid zygote forms. And the you know what? The male cone produces tiny amounts of pollen grains that became the made gametophyte. As what I've said, each pollen grain is reduced or 2 to 3 cells in a waxy protective coat. These grains have wing-like structures that allow the wind to carry them up to the female cones. And then deep inside the female cone, ovules develop into the mature female gametype that bears fertilized egg cells. This, when the egg cells are ready, the pollen grain It enters the micropyle, an opening in the female cone near the ovule. And then a special pollen tube so that fertilization can take place. One of the female gametes produced by the pollen there fuses with the female egg cell. Okay, children? This union of gametes produces an embryo of the apophyte generation or the sesquipophyte generation, and then the embryo is protected by inside the cone, by which a tough seed coat which is surrounded by a papery wing case. And then later the scales open up and the seeds are blown away by the wind. Under favorable conditions, when the seed germinates and grows into a new pine tree. So that's it. Okay, children, let's proceed to another topic, okay? Have you seen or have you eaten a fern? In our vernacular language, it was we call this a pako. Wow, very good. Because today we will be discussing about the reproductive structure of fern. First is the root. This is the root, and after that the mature sporophyte, and then the I know not the mature sporophyte but soros. Okay, in the soros it will be called sporangium and the diploid generation. But look at this illustration. Okay. This is the haploid generation, and after that is the spores. The spores is the young gametophyte, and then the next is the gametophyte is the rhizoids, where the spores can become an archegonium with egg, and this is the fertilization happens, and the antheridium with sperm. Okay, and then after the fertilization, it will become a zygote, and after the zygote, it will become a young sporophyte on gametophyte. So after that, there will be a mature sporophyte. So that is the reproductive structure of fern. Because in the fertilization, this is the female archegonium with egg. This is the antheridium with sperm. And that's it. Okay? Now, children, did you understand it all about what is the reproductive structure of animals and plants? Wow, very good. Thank you for listening.